Good evening guys and welcome back to a brand new video. In this week's video we were supposed to be tearing down my Corsa B to find damage that either wasn't fixed properly or hasn't been fixed at all. That is, if there is any. However, the weather had other plans. If we take a step outside, you'll see behind me that there is a thick layer of snow on the roof of the Corsa. We don't normally get a lot of snow in the central belt of Scotland, however we got a good 3 or 4 inches a couple of days ago, and unfortunately it's not defrosted, it's just frozen over and turned to really hard snow. And as much as I have shovelled the driveway a little bit, there is still a lot of snow on the driveway and I don't really want to lie in that to clean the underside of the Corsa. Which means that this week's video is actually going to be the video that I planned for next week, and next week's video is going to be tearing down the Corsa B to find crash damage. So if you spot behind me, there is a star silver Vauxhall Corsa B GSI spoiler. Now this spoiler was actually supposed to be for next week's video, however I guess I'm going to have to do it this week. I picked this up in Glasgow for £80. Now you might be wondering, why did I get a star silver one instead of an Arden blue one? Well, I couldn't find any Arden blue ones for sale in Scotland. The closest was in Northern Ireland and they are crazy prices. £80 is still a lot of money for a spoiler for an old car. However, £80 for a Corsa B spoiler is actually pretty good in today's market. And then to resolve the whole star silver issue, I went to my local paint shop and had them mix me up a fresh can of Arden blue paint so that I can paint my spoiler to match the car perfectly. Now as you can see, I've remounted the spoiler and what we're going to start off with is the prep work. So I've never really sprayed anything in my life and had a good finish on it. I watched a few YouTube videos, which means I'm now certified as a spray technician, and I managed to catch a few notes for those videos. One of them being that the most important thing to do is prep whatever you're painting. So I've got 320 grit sandpaper and I'm going to start by sanding down the spoiler to see what kind of finish that gets us, to see if I need to go for a finer or a more coarse grit. Alrighty guys, so that is the spoiler all sanded and it's actually got a pretty good finish on it for just one pass with 320 grit sandpaper. It's nice and smoothed out, it's super scuffed up, it's taken out all the imperfections, and I'm not actually going to prime the spoiler because I don't think it needs it. I think the paint's going to stick to this well enough just with a sand. The blue is going to go on top of the silver and it's going to pop really nice. And there's no big damage in it, so it doesn't really need any filler primer or anything like that. Now with all that said, the next step is indeed to spray paint the spoiler. However, before I do that, I'm going to turn on this giant jet heater to try and get some heat in the garage. I'm going to warm up the spoiler using my heat gun, and I'm going to set the can of spray paint in front of the jet heater to try and get some heat in that. Now that we've got the garage and the spoiler het up, the next thing to do is to give this can a good shake. The way they mix colours is they put a lot of different colours in to try and make the perfect colour that you asked for. So you've got to give the can a really good shake to make sure that all those colours are mixed properly, or else the colour isn't going to come out properly. Now that I've given the can of paint a good shake, the next thing we're going to do is put my phone on a tripod, give the spoiler a final wipe down and put on a mask before we start spray painting. Fingers crossed this goes well. Now that we've got the first coat done, I'm actually going to switch to my second can of spray paint because that can was starting to sputter and it's actually left 2 big splodges of paint on my spoiler. I hope we can wet sand them out when I'm done painting. However, I don't want that to happen again, so I'm going to switch to my backup can of spray paint, which is a full can that hasn't been used yet. I'm going to put that in front of the heater and heat it up, and then we'll continue doing the second and third and fourth coat. So guys, we now have the spoiler painted in Arden Blue. However, there are a few little imperfections. It's pretty orange peely, unfortunately, if you can just see that there. Round about here, you can see two really shiny bits. I'm not quite sure what happened there because the rest of the spoiler doesn't look like that. Down here, I got a little bit too heavy with the paint, if the camera will focus. You can see a little bit of orange peel just there where I got too heavy with the paint. There's a little scratch up here that I didn't notice. Round the back here, it's actually gone pretty decent. However, in these little holes where the kind of filler panel would be in here, the paint didn't get in there too well. You can't really see it in this light, but there is still some silver up in the top there. For a rattle can in a garage, it's not really a bad job. I'm going to give it a few minutes to dry, and then I'm going to try and clear coat it and see how it turns out after clear coat.
The next day.
So guys, it is in fact the next day, and unfortunately my phone died after doing the first pass of clear coat. However, off camera I did do the second and third pass, and then I took it inside to dry, and I just got it back tonight, and unfortunately the paint is full of orange peel. Having that much orange peel in the clear coat is unfortunate, but I suppose that's to be expected when you buy the cheapest clear coat off eBay. So, in an attempt to fix the orange peel problem, I've got some 1200 grit wet sandpaper. We're going to try and wet sand the spoiler to see how much of the orange peel we can take out. If we can take out the orange peel, I'm going to give the spoiler a good polish to see if we can bring it back up to a mirror shine. If we can't take any of the orange peel out, I'm going to buy some higher quality clear coat and recover the spoiler in hopes of a better result. So guys, off camera I did give the spoiler a little polish just on this side, and you can see the difference. This side's super hazy where it's been wet sanded, and this side's not as bad. It's still a little bit hazy, it could benefit with another polish. However, I just wanted to see how it would turn out after a wet sand and a polish. There are still some little bits of orange peel in the paint. However, it's nowhere near as bad as the bits that we've not wet sanded. So I'm going to re-wet sand the top of the spoiler and then give it another polish just to see if it's worth continuing with the wet sanding and polishing technique instead of buying fresh clear coat and recovering the whole spoiler. So guys, as you can see, I've given the spoiler another wet sand and a really good polish, and this middle section here has came back really well. There are still some scratches in it. However, it's a lot better than the orange peel, and it's a lot better than the wet sand. You can see the little line there that I've polished and what I've not polished. So I'm going to continue with the wet sand and polish technique around the whole spoiler. I'm not going to film it because that would just be too long and tedious. And then after I've done that, I'll give you guys a look at the finished result of the spoiler, then we'll fit it onto the car. Now guys, after over an hour of polishing, I am finally finished with the spoiler. The finish on it isn't as good as I was hoping for, but I haven't got my machine polisher with me. I was just using this little wool disc attached to the drill. But for a makeshift polisher, you can see that the finish is actually quite good. I can see my own reflection in it. There are a few little scratches in the spoiler. It's hard to pick up on camera. But that is just because I was using a little cheap wool disc to polish the spoiler. Hopefully when we get the DA polisher, we should be able to take all those scratches out and polish up the rest of the car to a mirror shine. Now with all that said, and the spoiler as close as it's going to be to finished, I think it's about time we get that spoiler on the car. Now a few quick things to note before we fit this spoiler is it did come with the factory fittings, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's pretty rare to find these spoilers with the factory little screw things. However, I didn't really want to drill holes in my tailgate to fit them, so I was just going to snap these off with a pair of pliers at first. But then I decided if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it properly. So I did drill holes in the tailgate, which is unfortunate because it was an immaculate tailgate and it is going to upset some people. However, I want this car to seem like the spoiler came on it from factory. And there we have it guys, that is the spoiler fitted on the Corsa B. It's not bolted in and it's not got any glue on it. I'm not going to put glue on it just now because I don't think it's going to set very well as we are in -degrees of weather. It does definitely need some glue. If you look here, the spoiler is a little bit floppy, it's sitting off the panel. And just up here, the spoiler is peeling up. The wind could catch that and rip the spoiler off. So I'm going to put some nuts and washers on the spoiler and then we're going to pull it outside and get a proper look. So guys, that is the end of this week's video. If you've enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe and stay tuned for next week when we're supposed to be tearing down this car to find hidden crash damage or rust. However, the snow doesn't seem to be melting very quick, so we might have to come up with something else.